Welcome you to this lesson. My name is Teacher Monday, and I'm going to be taking you through a P5 lesson of term 1. In our previous lesson we had a dialogue, which I told you is part of our comprehension in English, where you read, understand. It was not a dialogue, it was a poem, where you have to read, understand, and after understanding, you answer the questions that follow. As I guided you, you're supposed to use the very methods I gave you to find the answers and try to them, punctuate them, and obviously get them right. So, for today, we have something more to that. In fact, before I look at this, before I say something about this, from the dialogue, from the poem we had last time, there's a jumbled story that followed. And that jumbled story, you do it as you have always been guided. P4, P5, we have always seen these things, even P3. So you'll do it the way your teacher has guided you in other classes you attended before. Then when you come to school, you will see what to do with further guidance from our P5 teachers. So just after that jumbled story, we have a structure pattern, or a structure as we normally call it in English. And this structure is about how to use must or mustn't. We are going to learn about how to use must or mustn't, plus some other stuff that will follow. But top of the list is how to use must in a sentence. You've always constructed sentences using must or mustn't. In fact, this is the affirmative form. At your level, P4, P3, you go to the positive. The positive form is must, or the affirmative form is must. Then what about mustn't? It means mustn't, because of this A apostrophe T, will be our negative form, because A apostrophe T is not. So not is that word so common in negative sentences. Most of our negative sentences must have the word not. So this is the positive version, whereas this is the negative version. I can say, I must have lunch today. That is affirmative. Then I can say, maybe I don't feel like eating. I'll say, I mustn't have lunch today. That is, I must not. But this time, want it contracted or shortened to mustn't. I mustn't have lunch today. One, I am satisfied. That will be my explanation. So, let's look at other examples, this time written. How can you use the above structure pattern or the above structure patterns? Like other sentences or activities in English, we need to read and understand the instructions. Our instructions are telling us to read, write the sentences below using either this or that. We are going to write the sentences below using either must or mustn't. Either must or mustn't. You read a sentence, the way it appears, you say, the way I've seen it, and according to this guidance the teacher has given me, I am supposed to use mustn't. The teacher has told you must is used for affirmative sentences or positive sentences. Then use mustn't where you see the sentence is negative. So part of our work today is to identify, is my sentence negative? Then I use mustn't. Or it is affirmative or positive? Then I use must. What shows the difference between a negative sentence and an affirmative sentence? A negative will have a not. Like I've told you, N apostrophe T is the contracted form of not. So negative sentences here will have the word not. Those that are not negative, those that are affirmative, in other words, will have the word no. Will not show the word not anywhere in them. So we have our example one as Yosia should drive my car carefully. Yosia should drive my car carefully. Is it affirmative? Negative. Let me see, is there any word like not? nowhere to be seen. Meaning our sentence is affirmative. So Yosia should drive my car carefully. Since it is affirmative, we are choosing to use must. We are using must. Since must is a modal verb, or at your level you can quote a helping verb, and should is also a helping verb, we are going to remove it and replace it with must. So our answer will appear like this. Yosia must drive my car carefully. Full stop. Yosia must drive my car carefully. The sentence is affirmative because I've not seen any word like a not in the question. So to write it using must or mustn't, I choose to use must for affirmatives, as the teacher has emphasized. Yosia must drive my car carefully. Correct. Question 2, which should be our last example. Before I direct you to the activity, you're going to try. The mechanic should not throw away his tools after using them. The mechanic should not throw away his tools after using them. Rewrite using either must or mustn't. I said the choice is yours to take this or this. But remember, use must for affirmative sentences and mustn't for negative ones. So when you look at this sentence, it must be a negative one because of the word not. We saw word not in our sentence, meaning it belongs to this category. N apostrophe T, N apostrophe T. So what will be your answer? Don't write in full, you write according to the structure that has been given to you, and that is mustn't. So the mechanic should not throw away his tools after using them. Your answer will be the mechanic mustn't throw away his tools after using them. Never forget to punctuate with a full stop if your sentence is either negative or affirmative. Ours is negative with this mustn't. Why are we choosing to use mustn't, not must? We said because of the word not, which directs you to rewrite, to maintain the negativity in the sentence. Negative in the sentence, negative in the answer with mustn't. So having done that, if you have been following from the first explanation about the structure given to the example, the first one and the second one, I believe I don't need to give you 1,000 examples. You'll be able to attempt that exercise on page 11 and 12 of the workbook for P5. We have an activity about that on page 12 and 11 from our workbook. One is a table, the other one is about filling in. You fill in with either must or mustn't. I pray for your success. Before you think of meeting again, try to write with care and punctuate like the teacher has been emphasizing. Mustn't, don't forget that apostrophe in the word mustn't. We have another exercise just after that, and this is about composition writing, which we assume it's better to cover it when you're here with the teacher physically. We may not teach you how to write a composition, then you sit at home, you're watching TV, then down you're doing strange work, composition writing. We'll meet at school and get the details of composition writing, proper guidance from your teacher. So we have a new subtopic under the topic vehicle repair and maintenance. And this is equipment used in vehicle repair. Should it be equipment or we add an S? The word equipment remains equipment, not pluralize it, not add S to change it to plural. So it is equipment used in vehicle repair. Don't assume the teacher made a mistake. No mistake has been made here. So we are talking about equipment used in vehicle repair, tools used in vehicle repair. This is a new subtopic which also requires you to master the vocabulary in it. We have a lot of new words about it, a lot of them, and they are in your booklet. If you have a booklet following this lesson, you'll see words like a mechanic, words like tester, words like breakdown truck, that truck, yes, breakdown truck, words like spanner, tow, pump, grease, sandpaper, etc. So let's look at a few of them, what they mean, and the rest, because they have already been defined in our booklets, the teacher may not need to write 13 definitions of new words on the board, yet they already exist in our booklets. So we have the first word as mechanic. Who is a mechanic? That is the person who repairs vehicles that have broken down. Vehicles that break down or vehicles that get faults are taken to people known as mechanics and they repair them. And these people work from places known as garages. Garage. G-A-R-A-G-E. That's the place where a mechanic works from, where vehicles are repaired. So our next word is tester. Mechanics and mechanics use testers, and we're saying it is a tool used to test the quality of something. A tool used to test the quality of something. Most testers are used by mechanics, yeah. There are also people who deal in electricity. Electricity technicians also love using testers. You see him pushing it inside the socket to see whether there is electricity and how much of electricity is inside the socket. That is a tester. It looks like a screwdriver, but for it is a tester. So we go to word 3, and that is car jack. A car jack is a device for raising a vehicle off the ground so that it can be repaired. You use a car jack to raise a vehicle over the ground, off the ground, so that it can be repaired. Sometimes it can be for fixing a tire. You want to fix a tire, you use a car jack to raise the leg of the vehicle off the ground. And that tool is a car jack. Next is a toolbox. This is a compound noun. Two words combined, tool and box. But sorry, it's one word. Toolbox, like it sounds, a box for keeping tools. A toolbox. It's a box in which a mechanic keeps his tools. Simple as that. Mechanics keep their tools in boxes or containers known as toolboxes. Usually they're either wooden or metallic. I've never seen a paper toolbox. That one I've never seen in my life. But the toolboxes I've seen, the majority are wooden or metallic, made out of metal or made out of wood. So a toolbox is that box in which a mechanic keeps his tools. Lastly in our list, I've said this is just the last one now in my list on the board, but the list goes on and on. When you check your workbook on page 14, we have the word tow, which means to pull a wrecked vehicle. To pull a wrecked vehicle using a breakdown truck. Check the word wrecked, which means the same as damaged. A wrecked vehicle is a damaged vehicle. Now, when do vehicles get damaged? The answer is obvious. During accidents. Accidents damage vehicles. So when they are damaged, we call them wrecked vehicles. So to tow is to pull a wrecked or a damaged vehicle using a breakdown truck. The breakdown truck is the one that is used to pull or to tow a damaged vehicle or a wrecked vehicle. We have another activity. You know English is like that. Whatever we teach, we end with an activity. We can never leave you without anything to test what you have learned in the lesson. Here the activity is on page 15. You go 15, you also continue to page 16, and you'll see an activity. Connect to that connected to that vocabulary list and the definitions we've got. Our next item to talk about is slightly different from what we have been discussing, and that is conditional sentences. Conditional sentences. I'm not sure you paid attention to your teacher or P.5 if you talked about them. If you didn't, then this is your best time to pay attention to the teacher talking about conditional sentences. At this level of P5 term 1, I'm going to talk about if one. Conditional sentences are what some teachers call if clauses, and they are not wrong. If clauses. Some people call them if clauses, others call them conditional sentences. Since they are called if clauses, they exist in three kinds. We have if clause 1 or if 1. Others may call it the type 1 condition or condition 1. In condition 1, which people like calling if 1, if 1. We have if 1. Now if we have if 1, which other if clause do we have? You can now guess. From 1 we go to 2. We have if 2 as well. From if 1 to if 2, which other clause do we have? We also have if 3. We have if 3 or condition 3. Which other clause do we have? I will not say it. I will end here on 3. But these 2 and 3 will be covered in the lessons that will follow or in the classes after P5. So for now, allow me to talk about if 1. In if 1, what do we do? How do we construct those sentences in if 1? What is if 1 all about? We are saying if 1 is also known as the likely condition. If 1 is also known as the likely condition. What takes place in the likely condition? Why is it called the likely condition? It is used to express what will happen. It's when someone will want to say what is likely to happen. That's why it is called the likely condition. Likely condition, which talks about what will happen or what is likely to happen if a certain condition is fulfilled. You fulfill this condition, then something happens, and that is expressed in if 1. So, after getting this brief explanation, I'll take you to the if clauses. The if clause of if 1, then the main clause. A sentence in condition 1 or in if 1 has 2 clauses or has 2 parts. And those 2 parts are what you saw on the board. Each part has, or each clause has its tense. Be careful. The teacher talked about tenses and you didn't pay attention. I believe you are now paying the price. Each clause has its tense. A clause is that part of a sentence. So we have the if clause, which shows the condition, and the main clause, which will be showing us the result. What will happen if this condition talked about this side is fulfilled? So the if clause has if plus the present simple tense. What the teachers call the present simple. The if clause of if 1 has if plus the present simple. What about the main clause or the other clause of if 1? The main clause, which gives us the result of the action talked about here, has the future simple. Let's look at the examples. We should not talk a lot without getting the examples. Examples may be better than those 1,000 words using the explanation. The example we have is one here. In fact, there are 2. If he gets a spanner, if he gets a spanner, that's an example of an if clause of a sentence. If he gets a spanner. Next, if we hurry up. Each of these clauses or each of these words talked about in the if clause has its way, or the best way we can complete it in the main clause. So how do I complete a sentence of this kind? The teacher talked about if clause or the condition having the present simple in it. Where is the present simple now? The present simple is here. He gets. If he gets a spanner, that is present simple. Next, if we hurry. If we hurry is that expression showing you the present simple in our if clause. What else do you see in the if clause? The if clause has come at the beginning, and at the end of the if clause, you will notice there is a comma. In each of these two clauses, there is a comma. So, meaning, if the if clause comes at the beginning of my sentence, I must put a comma. We got the main clause, which is expressed in the future simple. Remember, we are looking at if one. So in the main clause, we see the example as, he will tighten the nut. What shows the future? Will plus that verb in infinitive form. He will tighten the nut. So this is a completion of this sentence, or a continuation of this sentence. In other words, this is the way we can complete it. If he gets a spanner, he will tighten the nut. If he gets a spanner, he will tighten the nut. Present simple, future simple. As simple as that. In the future simple, you expect to see words like will or shall plus a verb in its infinitive form. That's why you see will plus tighten. Then shall plus find. These are the words that express the future simple. So we have the second sentence. Let's start from here and complete it from here. If we hurry up, we have a comma because like the teacher has just explained. We use a comma at the end of the if clause. If that if clause comes at the beginning of our sentence. If we hurry up, we shall find the mechanic. And that's the end of our sentence. Then it is complete. What shows the future simple? Shall find. This side shows the main clause, which shows the result of us or we hurrying up. The moment we hurry up, we shall find a mechanic. Briefly, this I can say is a summary. Now we have an example. Yes, other examples of sentences in if one, where we have, if Joker goes to town, he will buy a pair of pliers. If Joker goes to town, he will buy a pair of pliers. If he buys a pair of pliers, it is clear he's a mechanic. He's a mechanic. Mechanics are the ones who normally use pairs or pliers. Like I said in our table, the condition is going to town. Joker goes to town. And this is expressed in the present simple. Joker goes. That is present simple. He will buy. This is the result. The result of going to town is buying a pair of pliers. So we express the result, like we have said in the table, in the future simple, where we use will or shall plus a verb in its infinitive form. If Joker goes to town, he will buy a pair of pliers. This is not the only way we can construct an if one sentence. We have if blah blah, if and other words. Now here we have if plus other words that follow as we have seen them. There's another way of expressing if one. And how do we do that? The if clause can come in the end, then the main clause can come at the beginning. In other words, the conditional clause or the if clause comes at the end sometimes, then the main clause or the clause that shows you the result can also come at the beginning. Now what happens when we interchange the two clauses? You'll notice that the comma disappears. The comma totally disappears when our main clause comes at the beginning. We have example 2 which shows you that. And example 2 is clear, no comma has been used. The mechanic will repair my car if I take it to him. I repeat, the mechanic will repair my car if I take it to him. If I decided to begin with the if clause, I would begin with these words. These words will be appearing at the beginning, but not him, because him is a pronoun. Later you learn about pronouns. If I take my car to the mechanic, he will repair it. If I take my car to the mechanic, he will repair it. That is, if the teacher chooses, or if the child chooses to begin with the if clause, you need a comma. If the if clause comes at the beginning, if clause at the end, no need to put any comma. Just master that. Teacher, do we have an activity about that? The answer is obviously yes. We have an activity connected to conditional sentences, and that is strictly if one, because it is what we come to discuss today, nothing more. The if one activity is on page 17 and 19 in our workbooks. You go to page 17 and page 19 in the workbooks and you'll be able to get the details about the activity connected to conditional sentences. Strictly if one, you'll not see your teacher talking about if two or if three. What else follows after that activity? You have a common question that used to appear in your P3 papers, even P4. Now that you're in P5, I trust you can do it. And this is a guided composition, as you can see if you're following this lesson using a workbook. There's a guided composition which you're going to help and do it from there, from your home file. You'll fill in using the words given in the box, and that box is at the bottom of the story. Yeah, guided compositions usually have that stuff. They give you choices to make or words to choose from as you fill in from it, say the story or the composition correctly. So below is our words we are supposed to choose from, and that activity will be on page 19. You'll get it on page 19 from your workbook. I hope that is clear. Maybe one other word of caution to you. Be careful when doing this activity. We would not normally recommend the use of pencil work. What I recommend is sit down, read, understand the story, and after understanding it, start picking words. Sometimes I usually tell you, tick that word you have chosen. For example, if I've chosen the word dusty as my first word, tick it as you read through the story. Why don't I recommend using the pencil and then you rub? Sometimes people forget to rub, and in the end the teacher says, as if some work was answered by a P1 child, then other words were written by a P6 child or P5. Some work is in pencil, then other stuff is in ink, and that is total confusion. I don't know any teacher under the sun who likes dirty work. So to avoid problems, better answer in ink, unless you trust yourself when it comes to rubbing pencil work. Yeah, that's when I will only recommend pencil work first. But remember, need to work is always needed in our English. After that, we see page 20 with a picture composition. Page 20 here comes with a picture composition. Which composition I believe will be best done when we are together at school. Picture composition. There's a lot of stuff you can discuss with the teacher when he's before you from the classroom. So allow me end here for now. The next time we meet, we will have a look at the new topic, and that is print media. Print media is our new topic. You can take time to go through that vocabulary, so that by the time you click on the next video of a P5 lesson, English, you'll have a clue of what the teacher has come to talk about. That will be on our page 21. So I want to end here and wish you a blessed maybe 2-3 days or a week before we meet again. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.